Alright folks, so today we're going to do a competition brisket. I'm going to show you how to trim it, we'll season it, we'll inject it. I get a little more into this brisket than most people would. You wouldn't do it this way at home because you're going to see I'm going to cut a lot of pieces off of it. But first things first, for competition we always use the best briskets we can get. So this red stripe, and right, you can see right there, this is USDA prime beef. So it's the top 1/3 of all beef that's out there. So you always usually have to ask your butcher for it. Sometimes you'll see it in Costco or something like that. It's in cryovac. I like to let it sit in the fridge for a couple weeks because you can see it's kind of flexible. Whereas if you look on the case of a brisket, there's a date, and that kind of represents the kill date. If you get meat that hasn't had a chance to rest, it's real stiff, and it sometimes makes for a chewy brisket. It doesn't get to kind of soften up that much. So we'll just open this up. Sometimes when you open up some meats out of cryovac, it has a kind of a funny smell. That doesn't mean it went bad, it just means that it just will dissipate. If it doesn't dissipate after a few minutes, then it could be bad, so you gotta watch for that. But usually it'll dissipate pretty quick. So get it out of here, and get all this blood off of it. And this is just about a 17-pound brisket we're working with. That's what I usually like to cook for competition, because like I said, you're gonna see I'm gonna get real aggressive on cutting this thing up. I'm really gonna cut it to how it's going to go in the box. So I'm going to get my slices from probably right about here. So I'm actually going to cut all of this off just to isolate my slices so I get nice smoke all the way around and good crust all the way around. And then our flat is underneath here, running all through here. I mean, our flat's here and our point's running under here. And you're going to see I'm going to cut out a lot of the point and the fat off of the point so we can cut it up for burn ends. So we'll start on the front side of this. And really, we're just going to take anything off of this front side that doesn't need to be there. And on here, all of this, because you can't get rub on this fat. It won't get into the meat. So for this side, we don't need this fat on here. You'll see the fat cap on the other side where it's going to stay on there. And we're just really going to take all this off and get the meat exposed here. I mean, you can see it's really good marbling throughout. That's why you get a prime cut. Gives you a little bit better than your basic choice that you might get at a Sam's Club or something like that. This gets really tedious, and only for competition would I take all of this off. If this was for home cooking, I would leave a lot of this on, but if you don't take that silver skin off, the rub will not penetrate it. So I try to get as much of that off as I can, because otherwise your rub and everything just kind of roll off of it. No rhyme or reason to how you do it, just get it out of there. So like I said, all this vein of fat, this all has to come off. Now, I don't like to trim what I'm not going to use, so once I take some of this off, I'm going to cut it, and I'll show you what I mean by cutting it into the box. Because once I take this piece off, I'm not going to sit here and trim all this when I'm not even going to use it. So save yourself some time, and like I said, cut it to the box that you're going to do. Now, you don't have to do it this way, it's just the way we do it. First time I did it this way, I took a second place in brisket, so now we do it this way all the time. Took a lot of this silver skin off the back of it, or rub can kind of penetrate. And I said, don't cut stuff you're not going to use. I know I'm not using this, that's why it's just sitting there. I also know, you see, sometimes you get some of this age on the meat, you get a lot of gray. You certainly don't want to eat it, you certainly don't want to feed it to a judge. So I'm just going to take it right off. I mean, that's just, you don't really need to feed a judge that hunk of meat. This big hunk of fat in here, we just need to get this out as well. Now, what I meant by cutting it down in the box is legitimately cutting it down to where I'm going to get my slices out. So I'm going to take one of our turning boxes. I'm going to wipe my hands before I touch it. John, actually, can you come over here and grab that box? Turning box. So when we look at our turning box, a 9x9 box, I want to cut it so this thing fits exact. So I'm going to take my knife and I want to go end to end. Now it's going to shrink a little bit, so if I go from there, I know I got to get this much brisket in, and I want my slices right here, so I'm literally going to take it from here, and I'm going to bring it all the way down to here. And like I said, I'm not working on what I'm not using, so this is coming right off. Now you can certainly keep this piece of meat right here and use it, chop it up for stew, smoke it separate, use it for something else. I just don't need to use it for the judges. So we're going to put this on the side. On this side, we're going to cut through and actually take this hunk of the flat off. So when you're done, these slices could come right from here. And, you know, this is where, you know, we'll usually use our thermometer and put it behind where we're going to do it so there's not holes poked into it or anything like that. Basically keep them as clear as possible. But that means we're going to take all this out because we don't need it. Again, you can keep this stuff, not this fat, but these pieces of brisket we pull out are certainly good for a lot of other things, so don't get rid of that. Grind it into burgers or something like that. This big quart of fat, this won't render. You can't use it for sausage or anything like that. It's just a big dumb hunk of fat that isn't going to do anything for you. And it's not going to help your meat because you're not getting any seasoning in there. Like I said, I'm taking this out. Again, you would never do this at home. It's different when you're cooking for competition. You know, you got to get your pieces perfect for the judge, and that's what we're doing. So, like I said, I've gotten as aggressive as you can possibly get on this. Then I'll go back and clean up any of this stuff here. And now, underneath that is the flat. So we want to clear that off and expose as much of that as we can, because this is where we're going to get our burn ends. We're going to dice these up into cubes after they've smoked for hours, season them and smoke them some more, and that's where we're going to get our competition burn ends from. Like I said, this is pretty aggressive. Most people would not do this. Some people in competition certainly don't do it. Everybody has their own way. What I like is you'll get seasoning and smoke on both sides, so that when the judge gets the piece, they have smoke ring all the way around it, all the way from here to here, and you have seasoning on either side of it. So that's why I like to do it. This brisket, I don't really do a whole lot. I just want to make sure that the fat isn't too thick on the flat. So here's our flat. You want to make sure that this should be about 1/4 of an inch thick. Obviously that's a little bit more right there, so we're gonna trim that down a little bit. You don't want too much. I mean, you need this cushion over here. I cook my briskets fat side down. That's the ultimate. People go back and forth of what's better, fat side up, fat side down. I cook them fat side down. On my smoker, yours could be different. The heat's coming from the bottom. So when the heat comes from the bottom, I feel like this gives it a nice shield to kind of protect and keep your brisket moist. So like I said, we're trying to just get it down to about 1/4 of an inch. If you leave a little extra, it's not a huge deal. You can always trim it later before you do your turn in. Like, see, that's kind of perfect right there. That's the way you kind of want it, that 1/4 of an inch. So again, you don't want to expose any skin here. We're gonna rub this side, even though the rub really doesn't penetrate it anyway. But I rub it anyway. Again, it gives just kind of nice flavor at the end. Now what we're also going to do is we're going to take all of the fat off of the point on the outside, because if you look, I mean, the point is marbled like you wouldn't believe. So we don't really need any fat to protect that on the outside. So we're going to go ahead and take it off and let that get, you know, this is, like I said, this is where we're going to get our burn ends from. So we're going to really just kind of take this off and let that cook. Again, this stuff won't render. This is not stuff you can use for other things. You're not going to cook it or anything. If you watch some videos, you know, there's plenty of people who leave it on. If I was doing a whole brisket and wrapping it in butcher paper for home, I probably would leave most of it on. But like I said, we need to get burn ends out of this, and the only way to do that is get all that meat exposed to the smoke. So we're gonna trim this up. All right, so I got most of what I need trimmed out of this brisket. I got a lot of point meat up here. Actually, I'm gonna take a little more of that off, but we don't need to put it on the video. But here's my point. Here's my flat. I'm gonna get my slices out of here, probably right about there. I'm gonna chop this into cubes and get my burn ends out of this. You can see I took most of the fat off both sides, because this is where I'm gonna probably get it from. It's like right there, maybe a little off of this hunk right here. But this is where it's coming from, the burn ends. Just to mention, this is a standard boning knife. It's Victorinox. You can see it on our website. You don't have to buy, like, we got shun knives around here that we use, like these. These are really expensive. That's like a $200 knife right there. You don't need that for barbecue. I mean, one guy on the team's a chef, so he's fancy. But a Victorinox, it's flexible. It makes it easy to trim this stuff, and it will do just as good a job for this kind of stuff. You don't feel bad if you leave it on competition either, because you just, hey, I lost a $30 knife as opposed to a $200 knife. So check out our website. Like I said, these are on there. You can also get them straight from Restaurant Depot, but the Victorinox is a little bit better than just what you would get from Restaurant Depot. They don't really, they're stainless, so they don't usually rust. Injection. So what we use is good beef stock. For us, there's a Wegmans nearby. They have a really nice organic beef stock we use. I use Butcher's Barbecue Prime Brisket Injection. Some people use Cosmos, some people use other ones. I feel that this has been the best one on the market. A lot of other pitmasters use it. In fact, I don't know any other pitmasters who don't use it. Eating brisket at home, I don't usually inject this stuff. Maybe some beef or something like beef stock, but for here, you got to do it. It's going to hold in the moisture. It's got phosphates in it so that brisket stays nice and moist.
11 off 2 scoops. This is the 1-to-1 ratio on cups to scoops of injection here. So 2 good scoops, 2 cups of stock. Mix it up, and then we're ready to inject.
Stuff off the sides. Okay, I'll let that settle a little bit, and then we'll do an injection. Using that butcher injection I just showed you how to mix up. This is off of, that's the Cosmos Q. It's a glass tube inside here. We're gonna pull this up. I use these, you can look on our website. I set it about a 2. You'll see what I mean by that in a minute. Tighten this thing up. Pull this and give ourselves a little latitude here. So this injection I mixed up, that's about enough for 2 briskets. I'm pretty liberal when I inject. So you see we're pretty filled up. Like I said, I got it set at 2 so you can see about how much injection comes out in each squirt. Now when you're injecting these, you want to go against the grain, because the theory is it's going to hit the grains and it's going to spread out. So we go into just a 1-inch grid pattern, give it a pump. Some's going to certainly come out. Now whatever comes out, we're going to actually scoop up off the bottom and re-inject it. So don't worry about what's dripping off. We're just making sure it gets in there. Some people dig in and make a little pocket. I'm not a huge fan of that because I don't want to mess up what my brisket looks like on the inside. I always go with or against the grain, because you'll see when you slice it, if you go with the grain, sometimes you'll see a wave of the darkness from the injection, and that's not good because then judges know you injected it, and although they probably know anyway, they don't want to give them any reason to score you down for appearance because you can see the injection lines from when you shot it in. I like to go in a little bit of an angle. Like I said, this is not sucking up like I love, but it'll be okay. Like I said, I'm gonna pick this back up. Prick your finger sometimes. Just finish it right up here. Usually do about a 1-inch grid here. It's okay, actually, this is going to kind of sit and settle before I rub it, so it's alright if it just kind of sits in there too. There's nothing wrong with letting it just kind of soak in some of that. And like I said, you're getting some saltiness out of this, you're getting some phosphates. I don't do a ton in the flat, because the flat's kind of going to keep that moisture anyway because there's so much fat, but I just quick shots around this thing. Oh, you never know where it's going to shoot sometimes. It's just hitting the shirt. Oop, another shot. So you don't have to go super crazy on the flat because again, it's got a lot of moisture. Okay, that's a fully injected brisket right there. Like I said, we're gonna let it settle a little bit like that, and we're just gonna suck that back up and shoot it right back in. Some that's gonna come falling out, and then we're gonna rub it down. So I'm gonna go hit my other brisket, and I'll show you what the rubs we're gonna do to put on this thing. Here's our 2 competition briskets. They're all ready to go. We're gonna use a 3-layer seasoning that we do. I didn't invent this 3-layer seasoning. I'm using it right off of the Killer Hogs website, and we're gonna use some Killer Hogs products. You can look it on our website. We have links to pick these up. So we're gonna first lay it down with an all-purpose rub, and that's this one right here. So all-purpose rub is basically just, you can see the granules in there. It's just a garlic, salt, pepper mix, really. A couple other things in there. So if you don't have the AP rub, you can always just mix up garlic, salt, and pepper. This is the barbecue rub. Love their barbecue rub. It's not too sweet. It's got a really good red color. So between this and that, it gives it a really nice color. And then I just top it off with some Montreal steak seasoning. It's got some good flavors, good real peppery. You know, people love the peppery taste on the brisket. And it's got some kind of, you can see there's a granule, so it gives a little kind of texture when the judges get it. And it's a familiar taste. Everybody knows Montreal steak seasoning, and when a judge gets it, sometimes they're looking for some familiarity in their taste. So I'm just going to pack these a little bit with some towels. so that the rub is going to stick to it. We'll wipe it off a little bit. We don't want puddles in the bottom when we try to do this. Makes it a little bit easier if we take some of that out. So we injected it, now we're going to do a rub. So here's how we're going to rub them. We'll start on the back side. And I know I said it's not going to penetrate this, but I'm still going to rub the whole back side anyway. Rub doesn't cost much, just use it. We're going to get some areas you maybe wouldn't have got before. And give it just a good coating across this whole thing. So we're going to hit all in here. Make sure you get all these sides really nice, because again, that's building the crust. Get these flaps onto here. I'll show you when we flip it. We'll hit it again. That's the back side. I'm going to use now I'm going to use the Killer Hogs Rub. Again, you can find it on our site. Get a link to pick this up. And it's got a nice red color. I think a red color is great for competitions. I just kind of like the look of it. Now these are going to get rubbed and these are going to sit out for a while. We're going to put them back in the cooler, and then an hour before we put them in the smoker, I like to let them sit out, just kind of come up to room temp. Some people think it builds a better smoke ring. I don't know about all that, but I know I let them come up to room temp, because if not, you're putting 50 pounds of meat in your smoker ice cold. It's going to drop the temperature for hours to come. So while that one's kind of setting, I'll start doing this one. Same thing, give it a coating of the AP. Okay, so now we got this side on this. It's giving this just enough time to kind of set in there, so the rub's kind of sticking to it now. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to hit the other side. And on the front, on the meat side, I'll show you we're going to do all three of the seasonings. So first, we're going to hit it with the AP. Again, that's just a nice salt, pepper, garlic combination. They already hit these front ends, so we don't have to worry so much about them. Make sure you really get down in here. And on this side, remember, we cut that for the box, so we want to make sure we get some good seasoning in on that. Okay, so we got that in. Let's come back with barbecue rub. Again, it's going to give a really nice color. Rub's definitely got a good amount of, some salt, but a lot of paprika, a little brown sugar. Like I said, it just gives a really nice red color to meat. And even though that's usually better suited for pork, in competition, I think the combination of these three just gives you what you're looking for. Okay, so that's our coating there. So again, give it a good liberal dose. Now on this side, last but not least, we're going to come in with this Montreal steak seasoning. On our site, Killer Hogs has a steak seasoning too. It's basically the same thing, so I just grabbed a big box of this. Like I said, this is just a real nice, you see the texture that's kind of getting on there. I'll press it in a little bit. Now the steak seasoning, I don't do it on both sides. Again, I don't think you need all that texture on the fat side. Get these ends nice. Get in here real nice. Alright. So that's done. And then we'll do it with this other side as well. Alright, so we got a brisket here. This is our flat. That's where we're going to get our slices from. This is our point. We're going to burn ends from there. Got to get your hand underneath. Just kind of feel the fat line. Break it apart off of there. There, we have a nice beautiful flat we'll get our slices out of. I'll put that here, and we're going to take a piece of foil and wrap that up. It's truly the piece of meat that is just a big dumb hunk of animal. And it's the one that's easiest to scrub. But with how good those burnt ends tasted, I feel like we can't possibly go wrong here. Except if I put my finger in the pinky. And that just happened. Put this baby right here. It's gonna be sauce dripping there in case you need it. Can you keep giving me time checks?
It is 12, 8, 19.